Shabbat Shalom or Shalom Shalom, depending on what day it is when you watch this video. Um, this is Efraiym from the House of Efraiym coming to you with the first video in the series that I've called After Its Kind. I've mentioned it a few times before, but I'm going to give a little bit of a preview that this lesson is from the perspective of being able to recognize what's happening in the spirit realm versus what's manifesting in the natural. And it caught my attention because of some passages that we'll go through later in the book of Bereshit. Um, but it even stung me a little bit more when I began to consider how I see what looks like a drifting away from the spirit realm in terms of, what believers are doing all around. And this is not me throwing mud in any way because there's always something to be learned and to be gleaned and to be held on to in this walk. In my opinion, the spirit realm is our anchor. And the strange thing about it is we can't see it. At least normally we can't see it. However, it is still our anchor because Yahuwah is spirit, and those who worship him will worship him in Ruach and Emet, in spirit and truth. And you can go back and watch. I had a video series about that exact passage, or around that exact passage out of Yehukanan chapter 10. But today, I want to just start this process of helping us to sort of, for lack of a better word, and so make sense later, weed out some of the things that have crept into our walk and that have taken dominion, authority, etc., in a way that's not what Yahuwah designed us to do. So there's a lot of perspectives in which we see Mashiach talk about things. He talks about gardens, he talks about fields, he talks about fishing, he talks about a number of different aspects that are parabolic in the sense that they give us this opportunity to see into the spirit realm, while at the same time uh, minimizing that influence that our flesh and all these other things may have to try to keep us from the truth. Now, when I say truth, I'm not talking about the truth when I came into the truth like we hear people say. That's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is that relevant uh, piece of information, reality, that once you get it, it changes your life. That once you get it, you can never forget it. And so one of the things that crossed my mind when I was preparing here was how sometimes our children say to us, we want this, and they say, and everybody else is doing it. And if you're and your parents out there listening, you've heard this 100 times, right? But everybody else is doing it, but everybody else has got it. Go back to the book of Shemuel, and you see that Israel wanted a king like the other nations, like everybody else around them. And so this is just a little bit of insight into how spirit things propagate. And I guess that's really sort of the bottom line here, how spiritual things propagate and what that means to us as believers and what that means to you if you're not a believer. And so I want to get started by going through some passages out of the Birkat Shah, actually out of one of the letters that the Shaul wrote. And then we're going to bounce into Bereshit, and maybe we'll get a little further, but that's a pretty aggressive outline for us to get started with. So without any further ado, let's go into prayer. Abba, we bless you for today, Abba, that you are. Hallelujah. I could leave it there. You are Yahuwah. There is none like you. Even as my shirt says, Yahuwah Sabaoth, you are Abael. You are the one. You are Echad. You are before all things, and all things that are after you, and you made them. So today, Abael, open our understanding. Drop the scales from our eyes. loose the plugs from out of our ears that we might hear what Ruach says. Funny how that's what you put in your book. And this is how I'm approaching this lesson today. Give me, Abael, your Ruach in full measure to bring forth those things that would matter to your people, Abael. Even now, as they listen about work and fight and war against those things that are trying to keep us satisfied in a carnal state, when you want us to walk in the spirit, all the praise, the blessings, and the honor go unto you and Todah for sending your son Yahusha that we might be reconciled back unto you through his blood. Hallelujah and amen. All right, let's get started. I said we're going to start out with some passages out of the Brit Hadashah, and I'm going to read out of Ephesians chapter 6, and this is going to be a slow one because I really want to start to build this foundation very firm, because many of the things I'm going to say will be strange to some of you, and many of them might even be hard to hear from some of you, but I want to make sure that the book backs me up. All right, let's go. Ephesians chapter 6. I'm going to read starting in verse 10, and this is real familiar to most of us. Finally, this is from actually the Hebrew Names Version. Finally, be strong in Yahuwah and the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of Elohim, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Hold up. Has anyone ever considered that the devil was a natural person? Low, right? No. The devil is a spirit, right? The adversary, our adversary is a spirit, just like our king, just like our counselor, just like our support, just like our comfort, is all in the spirit realm. What it manifests into is the natural realm. In other words, the devil can use somebody in the natural to bring forth whatever his desire, his temptation, his luring to us. But the devil by himself is a spirit. And so what Shaul just said is put on this whole armor of Elohim that you can be able to stand against the wiles of the devil, your adversary. And then he says, for our wrestling. So he's like drawing this picture for us. He's like, WrestleMania, right? This is your enemy. And he's saying your wrestling is not against flesh and blood. But if I just stop right there, you have to ask yourself, well, what is it against then? Because it seemed like them people, it seemed like that guy, it seemed like that person, it seemed like they're all out to get me, or whatever the case is. It seems like if I could only get past them. And this is the wrong perspective, because getting past them, they can always raise up another one. You remember, and maybe you remember, I don't know, was it one of those Terminator movies or something where, no, I think it was The Matrix. And in The Matrix, they kept dealing with the guy that looked like an FBI agent or whatever it was, but he went into another and came out in another form and came out in another form and came out in another form. And this, even though it's a Hollywood movie, this is a picture of how spirits can operate. They are not bound by natural beings, and dealing with the natural will only make them take an opportunity to take another natural resource for them and use it against you. And so what Shaul is making it plain for us is that your battle's not against flesh and blood. So think about that. So if you're going through any challenges out there right now, if you just came out of some sort of challenge you recognize, if you go into some challenge tomorrow, I want you to remember that your battle's not against flesh and blood. It's not your landlord. It's not the police. It's not any of it. It's not the president. It's not any of that. The issue that's trying to work against our righteousness that comes from the Most High is simply a spirit. It's some flavor of spirit. It's some manifestation of spirit. For our wrestling's not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the world's rulers of darkness of this age, and against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. So verse 12 is the one I just read, and I'm going to go to the interlinear, and we're going to step slowly through this because I really want to burn in again this foundation. I want to lay this foundational work. So if we go down to the word where it says principalities, and it's so the Greek word is arch, um, and I'm not so much interested in saying the words as I am interested in what the definitions are. So walk with me. If you have a resource like this, you can get it from the Blue Letter Bible. You can get it from eSword. There are numerous places. Of course, you can get the books and use the concordances that are available there. And so I'm going to read what it says here. It says, um, Strong's definition is arc or arche, a commencement or concretely chief in various applications of order, time, place, or rank, beginning, corner, uh, magistrate, power. And he goes on to say something that's kind of interesting because it's the exact word: power, principality, rule. Well, I want you to think of what was just said, because what he said is that it's a power. Oh, hold up. If this was Hebrew, then it would be an Elohim. Ooh. It would be a spirit. I mean, so we maybe I should have said this beforehand, but let's back up just a little bit. Many of us know that sometimes the Malachim or the angels are called Elohim. And so I don't want to confuse anyone to say that they're Eloah, that they're Yahuwah. No, that's not my point at all. In fact, that is a fallacy. But what I'm saying is that those things are powers. They're not the all powerful one, but they're powers. And so, really, at the beginning of this lesson, you're seeing already that there are spiritual powers. In other words, something that's not flesh and blood that has or wants to take authority and walk in a power, and all powers reign. How about that? They all reign. And to reign means that something is submitted to you. There's not a king without a kingdom. Amen. There's not a king that doesn't have subjects. That's probably a better way of putting it. And so what Shaul is saying, principalities, he's talking about spiritual beings that are powers. And what their intention is to reign. And what he's telling us is that you're wrestling against these things because they want to reign over you. They want to reign over your family. They want to reign over your country, over your neighborhood, over your people, over your job. They want to reign. There's no king that's not looking for somebody to be his subject. Amen? And so we just got through principalities. Let's back up a little bit and see. Uh, see. The person or thing that commences, the first person or thing in a series, the leader, that by which anything begins. And so this third outline in the Blue Letter Bible is saying that by which anything begins to be, the origin, the active cause. If I look at that, I read it again slowly. That by which anything begins to be, the origin, the active cause. So the reason I read that is because I want you to understand that what he just said there, what's just been said there, is that these things want to be, pardon my word usage, gods. When we read into Tehillim, are you not gods? It's referring to these same messengers. Yet you will die like men. Now we could go there, but I don't want to go there in any detail. But I will say that if he says in that same psalm, "Yet you will die like men," then I don't understand how people think that that's Israel, because Israel were men already, and to say that yet they will die like men just doesn't seem to make sense to me. But those passages, and I'll put it up there where I usually put it, somewhere around here, but they are gods. If there's such a thing as a little g God, if you can just kind of follow me here, they are that by which anything begins to be like I've created it, or I have authority, or it came from me, or it wouldn't exist without me, or I'm the one that's making it able to live, prosper, do a thing such and such a. Apply that to spirits that are evil, because it already applies to Yahuwah Elohim. It already applies to Yahuwah Sabaoth. He is already that, and it is a matter of fact and truth. And so you see this opportunity for things in the spirit realm to try to mimic Elohim. And without them submitting to them, there's not really another choice. There's not really another choice. What will they do? I mean, they are mightier than the subjects that can subjugate, men and even other spirits that they're stronger than. And so the idea that they would just go and fly a kite doesn't really seem reasonable to me. They're looking for a kingdom, and they'll use what they need to use to simulate. Notice I didn't say to create, to simulate a kingdom and to try their best to rule and reign over that kingdom. Are you getting it? All right. Let's go back out to the next word. Principalities against powers. I think that one is kind of obvious. It's the Greek word exousia. Now let's read it. Let's slow roll this. The power of authority or influence, and the right or privilege. So again, we see the same kind of thread. The first biblical usage in the outline here says power of choice, liberty of doing as one pleases. In other words, nothing's over me. I can do what I want. I mean, isn't that where Yahuwah Elohim is? And there's not any other. Even Yahusha is submitted to the Father. Even Haruach is come forth from him and doing those things that are the intent of Elohim. So they all have submitted themselves, for lack of a better picture, to the Most High, because He is the Most High. And I'll just draw from the Ibrid or the Hebrew for Most High, El Elyon. If Yahuwah is El Elyon, the Most High God, King James Version, doesn't that automatically mean that there's some less high gods, some Els, some Elohim that are lower than him? They're power, but they're lower than him. Did you follow that? All right. So the power of rule or government, the power of him whose will and commands must be submitted to by others and obeys. So remember, these are the things that we're fighting against. Now some people like to say, hey, he's just talking about governmental systems, the Russians or the Americans or the whoever's, right? The Chinese or whoever. He's just talking about them. That's the governments and stuff. But if you ever remember me saying this comment about for God and country, there's this unbreakable combination or affiliation with spirits and governmental systems, even the one you live under. And none of those systems have found themselves fully submitted to Yahuwah Elohim. And so whatever portion of their willful submission they're doing, they're still missing a lot, which means that they're doing some stuff that ain't his will, which means that they're harming, even as we march toward this final situation where it's all reclaimed and all put back in order, but they're not submitted to him. One of the passages in the book of Daniel we'll kind of discuss this idea of a power or a principality power that was over an area that, according to Mikael, he had to fight through this thing. So, what I'm drawing for you is this invisible net that's over the planet, over maybe all of creation, where there are these little headquarters or these little field offices where there's something going on there, and the question is whether that thing that's going on there has fully submitted itself to Elohim. And so in the case of Daniel's story, obviously not, because the message that the Most High is sending back to Daniel is being hindered by this prince. All right, let's go back. So far we got principalities and powers, and now we're going to go and do rulers. Cosmocrator. That looks German, but it's Greek. Cosmocrator. And what the scripture says, what the definition for this says is Lord of the world, Prince of this age. The devil and demons are called, and it's in Greek, so forgive me if I can't read that without stumbling. But this word cosmocrator is what's right there. The plural of cosmocrator. And so in Ephesians 6:12, which is where we are, it's this world rulers of darkness. But it's saying that the devil and his demons are called this. So I'm going to keep going back because remember, I'm building a foundation here. So I'm not thinking you all are dumb or daft or no, not getting it. But I am going to build this foundation, and if you hang in here with me, it's going to bear some fruit for you later. So what Shaul just said is that the devil and his demons are in this list of what we're wrestling against. Not flesh and blood, not your wife, not your daughter, not your son, not your husband, not any of that. Yeah, we've got personality differences, but the truth of the matter is that the battle is really not against flesh and blood. Because if we all came on one accord with the Most High, if we remember the soft answer turns away wrath, if the book was really living in us, and I'm not talking about sound bites. I'm not talking about, well, it says this and it says that, and how we can kind of religiously pick at each other back and forth and back and forth. Okay, set apart ones. Hope you're sitting down. But that kind of stuff, that's the devil's work. When all we can do is find fault in the other people, when we can find the biblical reference, the soundbite or whatever, to shoot them down where they are. And it's not really toward the building up, because sometimes we do have to tear down to build up. I mean, the prophets did it all the time. And so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this foolish stuff that only leaves wounds, that only leaves discouragement, that causes people to break fellowship, that hinders folk from mending relationships and walking upright before the Most High. That's what I'm referring to here. That's the devil's work. So, world ruler, it's an epithet for Satan himself. That's this cosmocrator Greek word. All right then. And so now we've done rulers of darkness. I don't have to deal with that. World rulers of the darkness. I'm sorry, this breaks up just a little bit for me. Against spiritual wickedness in high places. So I don't think we really need to go against the spiritual wickedness so much. We know what spiritual is. I think we got that down pat. Well, you know what? Let's do it. So, pneumatikos, relating to the human spirit, a rational soul, a part of a man, which is akin to Elohim and serves as his instrument. That's number one. That which possesses the nature of a rational soul. Hold up. That which possesses the nature of a rational soul. And so it doesn't have to be human now. Belonging to a spirit is the second one. Or a being higher than man, but inferior to Elohim. Can I read that again? Belonging to a spirit or being higher than man, but inferior to Yahuwah Elohim. And so in many ways, Shaul's saying the same thing. He's like hitting it from this side and that side and that side and that side. He's giving us a 360 view of how these spiritual things are working, and that's my intention. And so I'm gonna open it up even more than he's doing here, and it's gonna bless you if you have ears to hear it. Finally, we get to wickedness. And so, wickedness is the word poneria, poneria, and its outline says depravity or iniquity or wickedness, malice, evil purposes and desires. Finally, it comes down to plots and sins of iniquity and wickedness. And so now we've got these spiritual beings that are strong. Their powers, they're Elohim. And they've got either is or in league with the devil himself and his demons. And they've got this intent on sin, iniquity, and wickedness. And remember, they're kingly in the sense that they're stronger than you and me. And they want to rule over you. And they want to rule over me. They want to rule over your grandchildren. And they want to rule over your country. They want to rule over everything they possibly can because it's in them. And what do they want to bring forth? This is the nature of the entire lesson. And if you don't hear anything else here, what do they want to bring forth in this kingdom that they want to create? Something after its kind. It seems so simple. Now that we see that these spiritual things are out there and that they're fighting against us, and their intention is to do what? It's to bring forth after its kind. And so I want you to really meditate on that as we turn out of the New Testament back to the Brit Hadashah. So back to the Tanakh, even back to the book of Bereshit. So let's go there and let's see what the word of Elohim says. I'm going to read this out of the Amplified version, doing some other versions now, right? Trying to make sure I get a round table view of everything that's happening here. One of the things I had promised in the Shemuel scroll was to teach some study skills and study tactics, right? So one of the methods is to look at things in different versions, and I may have mentioned that a long time ago, and of course to dig into some of the words, but be careful because Strong doesn't always have a perfect rendition of what's going on. And this is why it's so important to pray and to ask the Most High to open our understanding and to show us what it is that He would have us see in the midst of that word. Because Strong could say something, and it could very well be that the application of those passages that he missed it. I'm not saying it's useless. It's a very good work. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes he doesn't get it right. So let's go to Bereshit chapter 1, verses 11 and 12, reading from the Amplified Bible with some substitutions for some of the words that you'll recognize me changed. So Elohim said, "Let the earth sprout tender vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit according to," and it's in parentheses, it says, "limited to, consistent with, let and let the earth sprout tender vegetation, plants yielding seed. When I looked up that word yield, I was thinking, no, before I looked it up, I was thinking, well, yield, that kind of means you're letting it. In other words, there's it's in there and you're letting it, you're allowing it. The distinction here is between the idea of creation and procreation. I mean, so when we talk about creation, that means that something wasn't at all, and I brought it to pass. I made it. I created it. There's nothing I created in the actual sort of baseline sense because Yahuwah is the only creator that ever is and was. But you get my picture. Whereas when you yield, that thing that came forth as you yielded, it was already there. It was already in there. I hope you can understand the distinction I'm making here. So let the earth sprout tender vegetations, plants yielding seed, fruit trees bearing fruit according to, limited to, consistent with their kind, whose seed is in them upon the earth. And it was so. And so their seed is in them. And so the earth sprouted and abundantly produced vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their kind. There again. And trees bearing fruit with seed in them according to their kind. And Elohim saw that it was good, and he affirmed and sustained it, is what it says in the Amplified Version. Let's read it from another version. Elohim said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which there is their seed, each according to their kind on the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to his kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. All right, so I read a little bit more by reading verse 13. But here's the reason why I've put this here. Well, first off, it's the first mention of this idea of after its kind. But what this series of lessons is going to do is to show you that after its kind is a spiritual phenomena. It's a spiritual principle. And because of it, I've already kind of let the spoiler out in Ephesians 6, because what I showed was that these principalities, powers, rulers, and high places, these things, these little elves, these spirits want to bring forth fruit after their kind. And so when we go all the way down to verse 26 in Bereshit, we see that what did the Most High do? He made these man and woman after his likeness. And you get the picture? And so everything and everyone is in the process of replicating. In fact, this will explain to you so many things about pollination and sex and everything. We're going to open all of that up as we go. And as the Most High allows me to wrap it or frame it, or how about this? To guard it with some rails of righteousness, because this is the key. There's not a problem that things are bringing forth after their kind, but it's what they're bringing forth after their kind. And then even deeper than that, how are they doing it? Because you can try to do a thing that was about your function. If you remember my talk about form versus function, you could do a thing that is your function wickedly. See, because when a man goes and takes a woman and is not his wife, and he takes her and he ties her and beats her and does all manner of things to her, including impregnate her. The impregnating part was function, but all of that stuff around it was wicked. And what I'm here to tell you is that there were spiritual things involved in that process that were trying to get in the creation, get in the procreation, get in the yielding process and bring forth after their kind with that perversion from them. Monsanto knows it well with GMO. And so when you think about what GMO does, so genetically modify anything, but let's talk about corn. So it's my understanding that when Monsanto puts GMO seed in the ground or sells it to a farmer, and the farmer upwind has got organic corn, if there's such a thing, when the wind blows and the pollen from the GMO pollinates the non-GMO and a seed is produced, Monsanto says, guess what? That's my seed. Hold up, did you get it? So Monsanto, oh boy, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Monsanto is the devil. Monsanto is the principle, the power, the ruler, according to Ephesians chapter 6. If you can walk with me here. They're the ones that are doing the wrestling, trying to bring forth something that is perverted or against or different than the will of Elohim, the thing that he created to procreate. So here they come and they say, well, we've got this stronghold over here. Remember I talked about the little picture of a net over creation and how there were these pockets, these headquarters, these HQs where the spiritual wickedness is sitting in them, which fought against the message coming back for Daniel. Remember that whole thing? Okay, so now we understand in this picture I'm drawing that Monsanto has got a stronghold with this patch of corn over here. And what are they going to do? The spirit of them in the wind, oh, come on now, wind in the spirit blows across and pollinates this corn that was innocent, that was honest, that was righteous. You with me yet? And I need you to keep up with me, because now this righteous corn over here, for lack of a better way of putting it, has been infiltrated. It's been infiltrated, it's been impregnated with a seed, although it's pollen, with a seed or influence that will cause it to be different, to be, how would you call it, perverted or morphed. And so now, whatever comes out of there is not the thing that its parent seed was. It's been morphed, it's been changed. And this is exactly what the devil is trying to do to you and to do to me. To change us, because now not only has it been changed, but guess what? There's been documentation where it says that Monsanto says to this guy over here who never bought Monsanto seed that that's our corn, dude. They take ownership over it. Do you see how the kings of the spirit realm are looking to make subjects, willingly or unwillingly? This is so important, set apart ones. Because we're just walking around and we're thinking that the devil has got some kind of horns and a tail and red. And we're thinking all of this stuff that's been drawn to us in pictures and movies and et cetera, et cetera. And we're missing the fact that as long as we're asleep, as long as we don't have our shield up, as long as we're not covering our gates properly, that we can end up getting pollinated by something other than the Most High. So back to Bereshit chapter 1, or maybe I'm done with that for right now. Let's see. So I said a lot, and I'm considering whether or not I go forward or whether I pause right here, because I don't want to overwhelm you. There's a lot to be said. The foundation is what I was after in this video, and I think that what I've said so far has given us a platform whereby we can go through the scriptures now and we can find how does this fit in what's going on? Even more importantly than how does this fit in the scriptures is how does this fit in my life? On my YouTube channel, I put, sort of a little blurb as to what this channel is about. And I say applied biblical studies. And so my whole intention, set apart ones, is that ultimately you could apply this to your life and the life of others, and not just be some student of the Bible who remembers every chapter and every verse and can say it out of their mouths, but not have a practical use for it. And so I'm going to pause right here and look forward into next week and a time when I can dig a little bit deeper. The foundation is laid. I mean, review some of this stuff that we talked about today and begin to go forward, showing concrete examples from the scriptures, how after its kind, the principle, the theory, as I call it sometimes, of after its kind is being manifested over and over and over again. So until next time, Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Shalom, Shalom Aleichem unto you and to all that you care about. May you continue to bless the Most High and learn to walk in His ways. Until next time, Shalom.